Good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome to today's discussion on overcoming compliance hurdles, looking at practical tools for media startups. My name is Paula Frey, and I'm moderating today's session on behalf of the Fraymedia Foundation. For those of you who don't know us, the fraymedia Foundation is a non-profit organization that is dedicated to advancing women in media leadership and entrepreneurship across Africa. It was established in 2022 by Shambila Bhagavat, Mangiwa Malangeni, and myself. And the foundation builds really on decades of experience in journalism, training, and media development to create spaces where women and diverse voices can thrive. And we do that through mentorships, through grants, through research, capacity building programs, and really work to strengthen media sustainability and amplify underrepresented perspectives. And we do this in order to ensure that African stories are told with integrity, depth, and impact. So today's conversation is really part of our program to support women media entrepreneurs, particularly, but all media entrepreneurs and early stage media founders across Africa. Um, Many of you are already producing powerful, impactful content, yet too often our media startups remain informally structured, a side hustle, something we do as a passion project but not necessarily something that we're really building as a business. And we do this without proper registration, without financial systems, without good record keeping practices. And because of this, many of our good ideas never ever reach their full potential. So today, we've really brought together experts who can help us unpack not only why compliance is essential, but also what compliance looks like and how to start building those systems into your businesses even before you even get registered. So I want to encourage you to invite yourself, to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know who you are, where you're from, and what questions or challenges you have that our speakers might be able to address. We have deliberately kept a lot of time for questions and answers because we want this to be a very practical session. Um, and we want to be able to encourage you to really ensure that we serve your needs. So I'm going to ask our two speakers, Zimbali and Nigel, just to briefly put on their cameras while I introduce them. We've got two, as I said, great speakers. Our first speaker after me will be Nigel Magamu. Nigel is founder of Chat263, which is a pioneering digital platform in Zimbabwe. Nigel has spent over a decade building a digital first newsroom and navigating the tough realities of independent media. He's presently the operations manager for the Center for Collaborative Journalism, Investigative Journalism, where he supports cross-border storytelling. And I know from my personal experience and the work he's done with the Frey College students that he's deeply passionate about media sustainability, financial discipline for startups, and amplifying African voices. We're then going to be joined by the person who keeps Frey College and Frey Intermedia compliant and ensures that we stay on the straight and narrow, Mbali Nihlengwetwe, who's the finance manager at Frey Intermedia. Mbali brings more than a decade of accounting experience, where she ensures that our finance systems are sound, our tax is properly managed, and our projects remain accountable. And we're going to show you how, as your organization grows, so the need for compliance actually grows. So Mbali knows more than anyone exactly what practical steps are needed for media startups to become compliant and to stay compliant. And so together, Nigel and Mbali are going to be exploring the what and the how. But let me begin with the why. So, and really, to be able to show you that we absolutely understand your journey. When I started Frey Intermedia back in 2005, I was driven by passion. I wanted to tell stories, I wanted to build a business, and I wanted to make an impact. But I also knew myself, and I knew that administration was my weakness. So the very, very first person that I hired was Debbie Kramer, and I hired her as administrator. Before I hired journalists, before I hired graphic artists, anyone else, I hired an administrator. And Debbie's role was simple but vital to make sure A, that we understood what we needed to do to be compliant, and B, that we actually did it, right? Because knowing is not the same as doing. And that decision really gave me the focus and the freedom to focus on growth. When I knew that the foundations were solid, I could really just focus on building a business. And I think for me, it's really important to say right from the beginning, I didn't have a safety net. I wasn't running a business on the side while I was working a 9 to 5 job. My business was my 9 to 5 job. And for the initial phases was my 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. job, right? Um, and so it was not a side hustle. It was really important from the beginning for me to be compliant. But I also want to say that the landscape today, so more than 20 years later, the landscape is far more complicated. Back then, compliance mostly meant registration and basic tax filings. Today, entrepreneurs across the African continent, because we're part of the global kind of trade regime, entrepreneurs face a whole range of additional issues. We've got data protection, we've got intellectual property, we've got workplace safety, we've got financial governance, we've even got environmental responsibility. And so that's why conversations like the one we're having today are just so important. Compliance isn't a ticking box exercise. It's a real roadmap for building your credibility, for assessing your funding, and for ensuring sustainability. As entrepreneurs, particularly in media, compliance can really feel like a burden. It just feels like there's paperwork, there's registrations, there's audits, and these things might feel very removed from storytelling and journalism, the things that really drive our passion. But compliance is about laying a foundation for credibility, sustainability, and growth. When we're seeking to actually raise funds, the way we raise money is really by people trusting us that we are here to stay, that we're not a fly-by-night organization, that we're not basically going to take their money and run. And so what we want to really think about is frankly cut out of contention for a number of big grants. What do I mean by that? Well, when you start out, funders want to see a track record. They want to see 3 years of financials. We were just starting. We didn't even have any income. We were basically kind of living off my savings. And so we couldn't provide that track record. And so we had to find other ways to demonstrate credibility. We were registered. We had a fixed address. We had a post box. We had a bank account. We had the basics of a business. That's why I always tell people, as soon as you have an idea, get registered. Get registered because when people look at your registration number, they can see the year in which the company was registered. And so even if you registered today, but you only start generating income next year, already people can begin to see that you've been around for a while. We started producing financial reports from year dot. And the reason why we did that, even though we had very little to report on, was because we wanted to be able to show people that we had 3 years of financials. Um, and as we slowly built up those financial records, we also built up personal relationships and trust. Compliance is part of that trust. being tax registered, having a tax certificate, having a business numbers, all of those markers of compliance tell your potential clients, your advertisers, your funders, your grant givers that you are serious and that you're accountable and that you're here to stay. So that experience really taught me that compliance is not about bureaucracy, it's about bigger things. Number one, compliance is about building credibility and trust. Compliance signals that you are professional, that you are reliable, and you're committed to the long haul. Even if you're a an influencer, a content producer, it's the sustainability of your business that people are looking for, that you've been there for a long time. Funders, partners, and even audiences look for signals, whether it's proper registration, tax clearance certificate, or transparent governance. Without these things, it's just so much harder to be taken seriously. If you're applying for any of the grants, if you're applying for a storytelling grant, if you're applying for a Google News grant, it often starts off with them saying, are you registered? Sometimes people say you don't need to be registered, but part of the grant is to help you get registered because people think that in terms of sustainability, a sustainable business is one that is compliant and has a long-term vision for what it's going to do. The second thing that compliance does is it gives us access to funding and opportunities. Most grants and contracts and investments require formal structures. I remember once a grant maker, a very big grant maker, hired Frey Intermedia to build a list of media entities across Africa. And one of their requests was that we not simply do a Google search for who are these media entities. They wanted to make sure that the people who they were actually giving grants to were actual organizations and not what they called briefcase organizations, not organizations that existed in somebody's briefcase where there was no office. They wanted us to visit offices. They wanted us to meet people. They wanted us to check that there was, in fact, an actual entity. So grants, contracts, investments, they really require some form of formal structure. Even if your business is registered at your home, make sure that there is a space in your home that is clearly your office or your working space, that if somebody comes to meet you, that it is professional. As your business grows, they ask more. They ask more than registration. They ask more than a tax number. They want to see your audited accounts. They want to see your management sheets. They want your tax compliance certificates. They want policies. They want processes. If you're applying for a big funding grant, for example, they're going to want to know whether you have sexual harassment policies, whether the staff who are working on their contract have actual compliant HR contracts. The bigger you grow, the greater the demand for compliance. So the reality is that if you don't have them, the door is closed, right? No matter how strong your idea, how powerful your storytelling, compliance is your passport to grants, to funding, to investment. The third thing is that compliance actually is a sustainable foundation. It is a foundation for sustainability and growth. When you are compliant, you protect yourself and your team. Because you are compliant, because compliance requires certain things from you, it really separates your personal from your business, right? It's no longer a side hustle. It's no longer something that you're passionate about. It's something that you are building as a business, right? It ensures fair labor practices and safe working environments. It positions you to scale. If you want to go from a one-person organization to a 10-person organization to a 100-person organization to even a 1,000-person organization, right? Compliance helps position you to scale. because growth without systems, without compliance, is fragile and very short-lived. Very often people start a business without a business plan. And I did that. I started Fray Intermedia with just an idea and the passion for that idea. And so it's absolutely fine to do that. But there's going to be a point at which you're going to have to put up the scaffolding, the infrastructure for this business. And your business plan and all of your compliance details is the scaffolding for your business. If you want your business to have I often say that compliance is the invisible backbone of your media business. Without it, your creativity has no support. It has, the smallest little wind can blow it over. And if you're not serious, if you are, in fact, at any minute ready to apply for another job, then maybe you don't need that. But if you're serious about your media entity, if you're serious about it and you're not simply freelancing, but you're trying to build something sustainable, then you need that invisible backbone. You need your business plan, you need your compliance elements, and it really allows you to then support your creativity, attract partners, and scale your impact. In the initial phases of your business, compliance is very straightforward. It is registration and legal setup. But there are, in fact, many different areas of compliance that you might want to be thinking of. Today, we're going to be focusing on financial compliance, but I want to just also highlight that there are other areas of compliance that we can look at in further webinars going forward. As I said, in the early stages of your business, the first thing you want to be looking at is registration and legal setup. Register your business. My advice is register your business as soon as you can so that you can already begin to show a track record of being there. This could be in South Africa, a closed corporation, a PTY, right? A partnership. You would choose what works best for you. It can be a non-profit, it can be an NPC. You make the decision. But registration protects your name, it makes you visible to partners, and it gives you a legal standing. For some businesses, you might also need licenses and permits. If you're operating from your home or from an office, make sure that you're operating in an area that allows it. But without registration and a legal setup, you are effectively invisible to funders, to advertisers, and to clients who are unlikely to take you seriously. Then, the next thing, once you have your business registration, the next thing is really tax and compliance, financial compliance. Um, Certainly, most countries require that businesses register for income tax. If there is a value added tax and your turnover reaches a certain threshold, you might have to register for VAT. If you employ people, you might have to register for pay as you earn. But it's really important at this stage, and Nigel and Mbali will talk about this in greater detail. It's really important at this stage that you begin to separate your personal from your business. I work with a lot of people who actually the money flows into one account. Their personal money, their business money flows into one account. There's a mixture between the money they earn from their individual work and the money they earn from their business is all mixed in the same pool. Make sure that you separate. As soon as you have a business, open a business account because it's the simplest way to keep track of the money coming into your business and the money going out of your business. Funders will often say, if you can't show me where the money goes, I can't give you more, right? And so good bookkeeping is not only about compliance, it's about really getting yourself ready for growth. The other thing about, when you don't have a bank account, a separate bank account, it's difficult for you to be able to understand the trends of where you're getting money from, right? Because everything is coming into the same pool and then everything goes out. It's difficult for you to see what you're spending money on, what you're getting money for. And when you don't understand that, you can't actually build a business. The other thing that I see very often with media organizations is you start, you begin to hire people. If you're hiring people per contract, make sure that you've got contracts for the jobs. It just makes business sense to be very, very clear of I'm paying you for this. These are the expectations. This is what I expect for what I'm paying. But if you have begin to hire staff, you have legal obligations. Make sure you've got a written contract. It's not optional, right? I mean, I see people have staff and the staff don't actually have a contract. They're working month to month. If those staffers take you to court, right, they would have a good legal case. So make sure that you comply with your country's wage laws, minimum wage laws, working hours, unpaid leave. Make sure that if your country has unemployment, that if you need to, you are actually registering people for it. Um, this is not just so that you can avoid penalties, but it's also about growing a business that is professional, because that is really what you want to do. Having make sure that you're treating staff as per the requirements. If they're full time, that they've got a full time contract. If they're working per contract, that they've got a contract for the work that you're actually looking at. As I said, as your business grows, there becomes more and more things that you need to be compliant with. Health, safety, and environment. The day my organization discovered that we needed an annual OHS certificate was the day my heart broke because it's just, it's more paperwork than you can imagine. But even media businesses must think about safety, whether it's ensuring safe workspaces for everyone, proper equipment, what are the risks? Does everyone know what to do when there's a fire? If somebody's hurt in the workplace, do we have a first aid person? All of those might seem like very, very far away, but believe you me, when we had to do it, it felt like an absolute pain. And then when we needed it, it was like, why didn't we have this before? So really, you want to think about that. Something that is becoming increasingly important. If you have a website, if you, for example, do webinars like this and you're collecting people's personal information, if you are doing anything that handles sensitive data, whether it is as a media organization dealing with sources, audiences, even employees, there are laws in the country. South Africa has POPIA. The EU, if you're getting EU funds, for example, has GDPR. All of this requires that we protect personal information, which means that you must have a privacy policy, you must know how you secure your data, and you must limit access to who gets that data. Um, I also think that data protection and privacy is not just about the legal requirement, it's about building trust with audiences. If we're asking people to give us their contacts, they must know that we're not going to use it to do all kind of nefarious things with it. Audiences won't share data with your website if they don't believe that your data is safe. How many times have you got to a website where they've asked you for something as simple as your email in order to continue reading? And how many times has it made you hesitate? So, really, compliance is all of these things. Always put agreements in writing, whether it's with suppliers, whether it's with freelancers, whether it's clients, right? If you commission somebody to do, for example, a story with photographs, who owns the copyright to those stories and those photographs? Do you, as the commissioning person? Does the journalist retain the copyright? Um, if you create something from the work you do, right? Who owns it? For a media startup, intellectual property is your most valuable asset, really. It's your stories, it's your brand, it's your content. You need to be making sure that you're protecting it. And then finally, right, compliance means governance. It means annual returns. It means minutes of meetings. It means setting up internal controls. Let me just talk about minutes of meetings. It can feel like an absolute pain, but in today's read AI, etc., it also can be quite easy. And the reason why you want to keep minutes of meetings or even with clients, etc., because the next time you meet them, You don't start from scratch. You go back to your notes, you see what they said, you see what the agreement was, and you start the meeting at the next step. If you're an organization and you're having staff meetings, write down what agreements were. Very often, you'll see diary meetings have the same issues over and over again. If you're actually sending out minutes after every meeting, it means that your organization meets. So, governance really, annual reports, minutes, internal controls. Who spends on your bank account? Who decides how much you spend? These feel like unnecessary things for small businesses, but even small steps like recording decisions and separating financial responsibilities builds credibility and protects against fraud. One of the things that I do, even though in some of the businesses that I have probably don't need to because I'm the sole owner, is to make sure that there's a separation between the person who loads onto our bank account and the person who releases. Why? Not only to avoid fraud, but that two people are actually thinking about what money is being spent, how you're spending it. So really, and then keep all your minutes in the same place. One of the things that I like to do is to go through minutes over either a quarter or even sometimes go back to what we were discussing in our meetings a year ago to get a sense of, are we moving? Are we shifting? Where are we stuck? What are we doing that really can move our business along? You know, these things are easy to do. Put an AI reader in, let it just kind of keep minutes for you, or even at the end of it, what are the five things you guys agreed on? Put it in there, store it somewhere. um, Put it in a doc. Just date the doc, put the five meetings that the diary meeting agreed to, and then go back and look at trends. I love to look at trends. I love to look at trends of what kind of income do we get at certain times of years, and things change all the time. There used to be a time at Frey Intermedia where we used to close the company in the first week of December and reopen in January because there was just no work. And in recent years, we couldn't close in December. We might close between Christmas and New Year, but the reality is that a lot of organizations are coming to us in December because they have unspent funds and they want us to be able to finalize it before the financial year ends. But you'd only actually understand that if you were able to go back to your minutes, to go back to your financials, go back to your monthlies, and have a look at when money comes in and when money goes out. So let me just wrap this up because the real skills are coming with Mbali and Nigel. Let me wrap this up by saying compliance is the invisible backbone of your media business. Without it, your creativity has no support. Um, with it, you can stand tall, you can attract partners, you can scale your impact. But you don't have to do everything at once. Start with registration, open a business account, put your contracts in writing, take the first steps and build it from there. As you grow, as a donor asks you, do you have a policy for this? Create the policy. If the donor asks you, do you have three people releasing funds? Produce a policy that then change your systems. Um, you know, build slowly but surely. Let me hand over now to Nigel, because Nigel knows firsthand what it's like to build a business from scratch that turns into a resilient media business. And so I'm going to hand over to Nigel, who's going to talk about the practical side of financial disciplines and the systems that help him build his organization. So thank you. Nigel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Paula. Thank you to the ladies at Frey Foundation and Frey Media. I'm going to share my presentation here. Hopefully everyone can see it. I'm timing myself. I like to talk. So how much time do I have? Please tell me. Building an organization is not easy. And I know it firsthand. I started a publication called 263 Chat here in Zimbabwe. I ran it for just over 12 years, and I learned a lot about about a lot of things, resilient, personal resilience, just the grit. What you need to do every day to build an organization. And so my little talk here is just a couple of, eh, some advice really on what to do and how to build for the long game. Um, if I can move my yeah. So why does this conversation matter? To me, this conversation matters because as media entrepreneurs, we're creating great content. We clearly have a passion. We got a gift, I like to say. We know how to take great photos. We're really good at interviewing people. And so this conversation is really important. Um, we need to have structure. Um, and that's a key word for me, structure. In this particular slide, if there's any word that's really important here, it's structure. We need to have structure for us to be able to grow. And so this conversation is really just to remind us, just adding on to what is said, just how to lay the foundations to grow our media organizations. Um, so this was me some over 10 years ago now. And this image is important for me personally because this is sort of in the beginning stages of what 263 was. And so I'll speak a little bit about that. What I like to do just set the spirit of the session. Look, it's a learning space for everyone. No question is too small. These are all the little rules, and I don't know everything. I like to say I don't know everything. I'm just also here to learn and to keep things practical. And I like us to always think we're building for the future. So what's the actual problem? What are we trying to do? Um, a lot of these media organizations, and I've been studying them um, all over the world, would have started with some sort of passion, so there's a why, like a big why. Why did we decide to do this? And what I found is we start these organizations because we believe in the thing. So we believe, look, my podcast will change the landscape. My photography will change the landscape. So we're not thinking of structure, right? And so unfortunately we are then forced into professionalizing the entity because we need to grow. And I experienced this with 263 Chat in the very, very beginning, right? So I know this firsthand. And of course, funders and people at the bank and even just yourself, it's important to have structure, processes. It's important to be able to present a piece of paper, black and white, to someone to say, this is what we're doing. And so it's really, really important. Compliance is important. So SARS, the tax office in whatever country you're in, it's really is important. I always think of when things go wrong, I need to be able to say I was doing the right thing. And sometimes the tax people will ignore you for years. You don't even feature on their radar. But when you do, they'll come in real hard and throw the rule book at you. So I think it's really, really important to remember that. Um, so some lessons from 263 Chat. 263 Chat is essentially an online publication that started as a Twitter account. So a it wasn't even a business when I started. There was no business plan. There was no how am I going to make money from this? I literally I did my first degree in Australia, went to Edinburgh to do my MBA, and while I was sitting in Edinburgh, I started joining Facebook. My sister said join Facebook so you can see photos from our neighborhood friends and all that sort of stuff. And I was actually believe it or not, slow to adopt these social media platforms that I'm now on and I love. So I joined Facebook, I joined Twitter, and when I was sitting in Edinburgh, I literally looked at what was happening in and around Zimbabwe. I'm Zimbabwean, and of course I joined the platform and I started engaging in discussions. I moved back home in 2010, and in 2012. I started what literally was a discussion platform. So no business plan, no secret bank account to um, to fund this business. There was no business to speak of, and so it started off from a tweet really, and it grew um, to what it is now. So 263chat.com. That's where we publish our news. The team will who the team that manages the business and the editors and everyone involved. That's where the content ends up on our social media platforms and of course on our website. We learned how to formalize the business because, we initially secured a grant to host these conversations. So that photo that I just shared, where I was moderating, someone literally said to me, um, this photo here, we want to host a series of dialogues. And what we're trying to do was get all these people together in a room offline and combine it with online so that we could have a conversation. And so that's really how that's really how we initially grew. And so that one grant enabled us to build a team and actually start building systems. And what it does from the beginning is it builds trust with the funders, right? Someone will turn around and say, okay, because you have a bank account, because you have a tax clearance certificate, because you have all these documents, we have some we can create a relationship and once again formal structures are created and we're able to then host the number of events that we did and we grew. Now I learned a lot. Write I could write a book on what I learned from 263 Chat, both at a personal level and also from how to build a business and how to grow a business. Um, so this thing started off as a passion project, like I said. At the time, I wasn't married, and I literally had a lobola fund where I was putting my savings for this lady that I wanted to marry. And so and as 263 grew, I started taking some of that money, using it to buy data for 260 because we're having these conversations on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. And she was getting worried because now it didn't quite look like I was serious about marrying her. I learned a lot. And so once again, you got to put in systems, you got to have a bank account, you got to separate lives. So literally at that moment, I realized there's Nigel, the person, then there's 263 Chat, the business. And I literally kept invoices, all the data I was buying for myself in a separate box, and then invoices and receipts for 260 in a different box. So I was trying to track expenses. A little bit of a backstory: I am an accountant by profession, so accounting for things is not completely new to me. It's a little bit different when it's you running your own business though. So I learned a lot. Funders, people want to work with you. They need to have confidence in you. If I give you 10 Rand, will you give me 10 Rand worth of service? And then can we repeat the same transaction next month, right? Good record keeping is just easy for you. You want to be able to share your the financial information with your bank. So I'm going to our bank who at the time we're not sure what a 263 Chat was. They had accepted us as a customer, and I would share the accounts for them to see what was going on. And if I could go back earlier, I could go back in the past, I would have put in structures from the very, very beginning. So we started off in 2012. We waited until we registered an entity in 2013. I would have done it right from the beginning, right? I just done it right from the beginning, and then that would have helped me. But because of my accounting background, I'm the kind of person, if I buy pizza for at home for us, I will keep the receipt. I keep receipts. My wife is forever going, why are you keeping all this paperwork? And so that's the kind of person I am. So I naturally keep receipts, but I was now learning how to separate the receipts and keep the receipts for the business. I like this little diagram, messing around with creating stuff. But it literally, key part here, business registration, do that, and you build. It's a building block, right? So once you've done the business registration, you can then do all this other stuff here. The bank account, record keeping, track your monthly and expenses and income. Understand the difference between we've got cash in the bank and profit. There's a lot that I've learned about running a business. I'm lucky. I understand a lot of these terminologies. Um, but if you don't, it's important to look within your circle, find a bookkeeper, find an accountant, find someone who can help you with certain things. Um, the University of YouTube is excellent for teaching you about spreadsheets and the right sort of software. And then, of course, you want to get to this point where you are able to fundraise, either through grants or just, getting investment. So if MDIF comes along and says, we'd like to invest in your business, they're going to ask you for a set of accounts for X number of years. And they want to see that this is a legitimate business. They might like you as an individual, they might like what you're doing and the impact, and they recognize it, but they definitely want to, go through your book. So you need to be able to show them that you do have these set of books and stuff. So, what does financial discipline look like? I mean, it's literally about registering yourself, and Paula mentioned this, separating your business, your expenses. Literally separating your life. I'm a dad now, so I always speak about when I die, what happens when I die. And my wife totally hates when I start talking about that, but I always speak about it because I'm always like, look, I want us to be very clear. This is the business account. This is the personal account. Let's keep these things separate. If anything ever happens to me, this is where this password is, or whatever, whatever, whatever. And it's very important to keep things separate, just so you know what's going on. Just for yourself, the passionate media entrepreneur, you need to know. You can't be, today's the 17th of September. You need to know really what happened in August. We need to have an idea of where we're going to land at the end of the year. And there are tools out there to help you track all of this stuff. Um, there's, I mean, there are a lot of little accounting software packages. You can literally use Excel if you want. You can literally write it down in a book and just write income. I've invoiced these amounts, and then the expenses. I've expensed these amounts. I bought fuel for this, and just keep every receipt and every invoice, and just get into a habit of just reporting it to yourself. Just you being just you knowing your business better. I always like to say, prepare for and I was taught this many years ago. Um, Prepare your 90-second elevator pitch for your business. And in that, you need to know, someone says to you, how much money do you make a month? You need to be able to say, I make this. On average, this is what it is. So knowing that information requires you to really understand your business and the numbers, right? Why does any of this matter? You know, Funders, investors, people are interested in you and your business. And I say in you because that's usually how it starts. They like you as a person. They really need transparency. I don't even want to say want. They need transparency. So they need to know there's some sort of output from Pastel, QuickBooks, or whatever accounting system you're using, whether it's your bookkeeper, accountant, whoever. They want to know there's an income statement that says this is what happened 2 years ago, and to be able to build a trend, to be able to do things like trend analysis. Some funders will ask for audits that are done by an external person. So you do need to keep records and then hand over the stuff to auditors. One of the roles that I have besides being the founder of 263 Chat and working for CCIJ. I'm also the FD of a school. One of my daughters goes to the school, so I'm the financial director. And right now, as we speak, we are doing the audit for last year. And for us to get to this point, and why we're doing it so late, is because I've been trying to push our bookkeeper to get all the information ready so that when the audit work starts, it's simple, it's easy, and it saves time and then saves money. So it's really important. Um, Record keeping helps even with just managing the team. I remember many years ago, I had to explain to our 263 Chat team how we actually make money. And I explained this to them to say to and I did it because I wanted them to know that great, you did the story, you traveled, you did this, but this is how this business makes money. And I always said to them, this is a business. Yes, we might apply for this grant and so forth. And to be honest with you, 263 is generally a for-profit organization. And yes, every now and again you'd apply for a grant, get some, and you win some, you lose some. But it's a for-profit organization. So in trying to build trust within the team, it's important to be able to explain some of these numbers to the team on a regular basis. And then, of course, we don't think about sometimes it's just you, the photographer, and your business is going to grow. If you're lucky enough, the business is going to grow, and someone is going to ask you, can you do a job for us in Cape Town? And then can you also do a job for us in Mozambique in the same week? So you need to scale. You need to figure out who's in Cape Town, who's in Mozambique. And so if you have all your records in order, it positions you for growth. And so it's really, really important. I'll just skip through some of these things, types of capital, just to help you with growth, short term, long term, and some of these things are important for us to know, right? Just to know where to go, how we can grow, how we can scale real quickly. Sometimes, if you need to have a photographer in Cape Town and a photographer in Mozambique, it's not really going out there and getting grants or equity kind of capital. Maybe it's just using your overdraft. And if your business is registered and you've got a relationship with your bank, you can quickly get an overdraft, quickly hire someone, and quickly do a job. So real quickly, there's some short-term funding options, pros, cons for these funding options. It's really important to familiarize yourself with stuff, things like this. This helps us understand, like I said, building for the future, helps us understand how we can be more compliant. A lot of these things require us to be compliant, right? So an overdraft facility, someone at the bank is going to ask us for 2024 financials. Someone is going to ask us for 2025 current financials as at end of August. So it's really, really important to be in a position where if you need to do these two jobs at the same time because your business is growing faster than you think, that you can quickly turn around to your bank manager or relationship manager, give them a document that says this is where we are financially, and off you go. You execute the two jobs, and you continue to grow. Long term, as we're growing, this is something that will probably take place year 3, year 4, year 5. But it's just also important just to understand and know some of these things, right? So all of this comes into, and I share this to show that compliance is really important. You can't get any of this stuff without having proper systems in place. What it does, it unlocks opportunities. Basically, structure unlocks opportunities, access to funding, credibility with partners, room to grow, and then there's just peace of mind. I can't put a price tag on peace of mind these days, especially as I grow older. So I like things that are systematic. And I want a piece of paper that says, yes, we made a profit. No, we didn't make a profit. And the team at 263 Chat, interestingly enough, share that information with me every month now. And I love it, from income statement to balance sheet. And we talk about, a little conversation, and it helps us plan what we need to do the following month, whether it's looking for customers, business development. Do I know someone who can help us with this? So all those financial information that is shared with me helps us all as a team, a peace of mind. Two, it helps us know what we need to do in that particular month so we can continue to grow the business. Some final thoughts. I don't want to talk too long. Compliance is not about control, right? It's about clarity, right? I love the word clarity these days. It's like my favorite word. Um, I want to be clear about where I stand with everything. So when it comes to financial matters, the business, the passion project, and trying to grow it and scale it, I need to be very clear. Clarity comes from structure. So we don't have to be perfect. We just need to understand what is needed, what's necessary, be consistent. It's okay to start small, start now. And the long game is won by those who keep good records. So any business that you see, any pair of shoes that you love out there, or handbag, or whatever it is, the car, that business was built by keeping records and growing bit by bit. My last. I was listening to Burna Boy's song Last when I wrote this particular slide, so that's why I called it Last. Um, you can't scale chaos. So if your business is chaotic and you don't have records, you don't know what you're doing in terms of the compliance side of things, you can't grow that business. And sometimes it's not that you're a bad photographer or a bad podcaster, it's just that things are not organized. So always think about growth. And I think that's my last slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Nigel. And I just remember when I started Frey Intermedia, I was incredibly cautious, and I was the kind of person who didn't want to take out a loan and didn't really want to get into additional debt. But one of the things that really helped us actually was to have an overdraft, because when you're starting out, it's really, really difficult to have that constant cash flow. It's
Yeah.
feast and famine all the time. And we would
Mm.
never have gotten the overdraft if we didn't have monthly financials, just, records of what we were doing. So thank you very much. And Nigel is going to be around for some Q&A. So if there are particular challenges you're having, please put them into the chat and we will start looking at them. But thank you, Nigel. We're going to move on now to our next speaker. And as I said earlier on, our next speaker really, really helped Frey Intermedia and now Frey College grow. As the organization shifted in its growth trajectory, and donor demands became increased. Bali is the person who really keeps us on the straight and narrow. So, Bali, if you would unmute and put on your camera, our finance manager, Bali Ngwetwe.
Thanks, Paula, and thanks everyone for joining. Nigel, I liked when you said it gives you peace of mind. It really gives you peace of mind to have well-kept compliance documents in place, because even if there is an opportunity that arises, it doesn't passes you because you have your tools already in order. And I like that. Let me share my presentation. I hope everyone can see it.
We can, yes. If you could just do play from start, please, Bali.
Okay, it's done. All right then. So compliance documents are very important. They boost their reputation and open opportunities. They also protect the organization from legal risk, help maintain the credibility with the stakeholders, and ensure the smooth running of the business. So compliance documents can vary from industry per country and for company structure. Today, I will take you through some common documents that may be required by funders or when you need loans, and also in running the business and for smooth operation what documents do the company need. So there are various users of these documents. It can be government and regulators. People like SARS, they need the documents. They will need your financial documents in order for you to submit your year-end income tax, to submit your pay-as-you-earn if you have any staff employed with you. You will also need these documents for labor. Sometimes Department of Labor can come for a visit to inspect the business where you are working at. So you will need to have the contracts in place for your staff that you have. You will need to have your salaries, your pay slip, and all of that. So all those documents needs to be kept in the finance department and kept safe for those kind of visits. Also for banks and investors, they always looking for these kind of documents. They will need your company registration. They will need your tax number. Even your financial statements, they will need those because they need to verify your credibility and if you are able to sustain or to pay back whatever loan that they will be giving, or if the company is sustainable to invest in. So all these documents are required. For legal advisors, they need those. They need to see that the company is registered as well. Even internal users, I'm sorry about that. Internal users such as your staff and your managers. Managers, they need the HR policies or contracts to ensure that the business runs smoothly. Accountants, they rely on financial documents to do their audits and budget at the end of the financial year. Founders and directors, they also need this document to make decisions, to do a shareholders agreement and all of that. Funders and NGOs, they need to see that you are credible in order to continue to do business with you as well. Common documents that are commonly required, as Paula and Nigel has stated, is the company registration, is the tax certificate, tax clearance certificate, which is also known as a tax PIN. So that can be acquired from SARS, but you need to be compliant. All your returns need to be submitted. All your debts or outstanding payment with SARS need to be submitted in order for you to get the tax clearance certificate. You can still get if you are not compliant, but it will state as non-compliant. And I don't think that will be nice for funders and partners that would like to do business with you. Even with suppliers, some suppliers, they will require the tax PIN to see if you are compliant before they can do a business with you. Then for BE certificate, for small businesses with a revenue of under 10 million, you can download on Google from internet. Then you can sign that, you can put your details, then you can go to a police state or any commissioner of oath to sign for you. You can even use your accountant if you have. So that needs to be done yearly as well, and is only valid for a year. Annual financial statement, as Paula has indicated, even for startup business, try to do an Excel just to keep your records in order, or you are required to submit the financial statements. You have your numbers. You can even give that to the accountants to assist you with. But if everything is all over, the auditors, they will be unable to assist and you won't even have the numbers. You can't even give out what you have done in a year or what is your turnover or what are your expenses. So all of that needs to be kept in place all the time. There are even some accounting tools. For our company, we use Sage Accounting. It's a simple accounting system. Anyone can use it. You don't need to be an accountant. It's a system that they do give guidelines of how to use it. So you can use that as well if you're a startup business. The cost is not extreme. It won't break your bank balance. It's about 345 per month, depending on the number of users that will be on that system. Then we have the work compensation, which is a letter of good standing. It's one of the documents that is required. It's done yearly. I'll take you through each how you can get it, where to register. The confirmation of registration, which depends on the threshold, and not everyone is required to register for VAT, especially when you are a startup business. A bank confirmation letter, normally they need not older than 3 months, which can be downloaded from your online banking app as well. Then we have another requirement, which is normally required if the business is an NPO, nonprofit organization, for tax exemption. If the donor donates to you, they will need a tax exemption, which is public benefit organization. It's a Section A document that you will get from SARS. It needs to be applied at SARS as well. Then for NPC registration with Department of Social Development, so all NPOs are encouraged to register with Department of Social Development in order to get the NPC. Another one which Paula has touched on is the permits, licenses, and accreditation documents. Like for our organization, Frey College is a college, so we need to be accredited with some cities. So whenever there's a client who needs a service from us, so we need to provide those kind of documents that we are accredited to do that specific service. Moving along, starting with company registration and tax number. For South African companies, they can be registered with CIPC. There are different types of companies that they can register for, depending on what is suitable for you or for your need or the purpose of the business. But most companies, they register for a private company, which is a PTY Ltd. It has limited liability, so which means directors are not much responsible for paying the debt of the company, but the company itself can pay for its debt. Then we have a public company, which is designed to raise capital and to offer shares to the public, often listed on the stock exchange. Then we have, but because most of you are startup businesses, so mostly you will go for the PTY Ltd. Then if you are a professional, you can go for personal liability companies, which is in corporations. Then we have state-owned companies, which are controlled by government. And then the non-profit organization is the NPC, primarily aim to benefit the public in specific cause. Maybe you want to give back to the public or community, you can register for that. It's not for profit benefit, but is to give back. So you can register for an NPC. Then the cost is about 175 if you use the CIPC portals. There are different portals that they have designed. One of the main portal that is designed for startups in order to improve starting business in South Africa is the Biz portal. So this platform is like a one-stop shop. So you will register. There are several services that they offer. You can do your company registration. You can do your bank. You can apply for your bank account as well in the same portal. So they are using different kind of banks. We have FNB and Nedbank, ABSA. There are various that you can choose from. So it's the platform that you can register for if you need to start a business, but you need to start by doing the company registration. Remember, when you do the company registration, then the tax number, automatically it comes with the registration. So on the registration certificate, you will have your registration number, your tax number as well, and the details of the owners or directors, and the date when the company has been registered, as Paula have stated. From the same platform, you can even download as an affidavit or BE certificate, but this one is only applicable for exempt micro businesses. Those are businesses with a turnover of less than 10 million. So you can also download that. You can even go as further as applying for your compensation fund and your UIF. But that one is only applicable if you have one or more staff members that you have hired. So if you don't have any staff members, you won't be able to do this registration. The tax PIN, just to go through to it in details. So the tax PIN is always required by the procurement department when doing the scoring for the bid that you have applied for. Even the suppliers, they will need that to see your company compliance. They can view your tax PIN because on the tax clearance certificate, there is a tax PIN number that will be given to them. So they can use their SARS e-filing profile to verify if the company is compliant. I think this was this protection was done because some companies, they will fraudulently take someone's tax clearance certificate or your previous tax clearance certificate that was compliant, and they will just change the date or the expiring date to put the correct date. So now SARS has given this extra security for companies to be able to verify it online than just to rely on the document that has been given to them by the client or the service provider. So that can be verified as well. So we must not try to be smart about it and try to change the expiring date on the tax clearance. Just ensure that you submit on time your returns that are required, and you also pay SARS if there's any debt or liability that needs to be paid. And a tax PIN, if you are not compliant, a tax PIN can change. For example, if I decide or if I pay the VAT or pay to earn late this month, or income tax, the company income tax, I don't submit it on time, the tax PIN changes to non-compliant. But the SARS will always notify the person who is a tax representative on the company's e-filing that the tax PIN has changed or your tax status have changed. So you need to be alert on that and always make sure that the tax PIN, it's correct. One of the things that I have seen on or realized these past few days. So we have a grant that we have, that a program that we are running, and some of the requirements for the bank is that we needed, is that, I'm sorry, I need to have my sentences correctly. So is that we needed a tax PIN, or the company needs to be compliant in order to apply for a mandate with a reserve bank. So it's always important that the company is compliant, because it's not just the funders that will look into that. Even your bank, they need to see if you are compliant before they can do business with you, especially for funding or grants that are paid outside of the country. So that is really important, to keep your tax compliance in order. Then for workman compensation, a letter of good standing. Companies with more than one or more employees should register for compensation. The compensation, it covers workers against occupational diseases or injuries that can be incurred in the course of employment. It also protects the company or employees against the claims from the employees. So employee need to register for return of earning, declaring the names and the number of employees for the year of assessment. The calculation for workmen's compensation is based on the industry rate risk. For example, for companies like construction or mines, their rate will be much more than a college, for example, because the risk of injuries may be higher than the risk that the college might have. Maybe the staff or student might be injured accidentally at work, but for mines, the risk is much higher. So then the risk rate differs per industry. Again, the workman compensation is also valid for a year. So you need to do that submission every year in April, and it's also valid for a year. For BE certificates, BE certificate exempt micro businesses are companies with a turnover of less than 10 million. So it's from 0 to 10 million. So even if you are a startup, you can do a BE certificate. It's called a SON affidavit. So it's you can download it online, or you can download it from your BIS portal if you have already signed up. It's also valid for a year from the date of submission or of download from CIPC. Qualifying small enterprises with a turnover between 10 million to 50 million, also valid for a year. You can still download that form online as well. But for large enterprises, like large South African enterprises, foreign countries, and and foreign countries, they are measured against the BE score code of good standing. So they must be approved and verified by SANAS, accredited service providers. The verification is also done yearly. That one is only applicable for larger organizations. It's not most businesses that normally do this one, because South Africa has small businesses. So most of the time we will do the exempt micro enterprise and qualifying small enterprises. So those ones can be downloaded online should you wish to complete them. VAT registration. I think this is one of the most topics that people normally ask about it. The VAT registration is not compulsory to companies with a turnover of less than 1 million. But they are compulsory if the company has a turnover of more than 1 million or expected to have a turnover of 1 million in the year of assessment or in the 12 months period, and they need to register for VAT. Then if your turnover is less than 1 million, you can do a voluntary registration. A turnover exceeding 50 million in 12 months, you can do that registration. But it's not easy because when we started with college, we have tried to do that, but we have already exceeded the 50 million turnover. So when we started the Frey College, from inception, we already had the financial systems in place. So we had our first year financials, even if it didn't, I think the first year didn't even show any turnover because we were building the company. Then the second year we had a small turnover, which have exceeded 50 million, but SARS needed to prove that in the following years, we can be able to maintain the same trend, or even if we can even go to 1 million. So we needed to give a written contracts from clients, that we already have contracts with, but we haven't invoiced. So we needed to prove that we have ongoing contracts or pending that we were looking to do for the year. So we needed to prove to send that to SARS. I think over time, the first application was declined and the second one was approved. So you need to be patient with the voluntary registration if you need to do one, but if there's no need to do one as yet, you can also choose to do that. But the reason why is it important to register for VAT is because most businesses who are VAT registered, they like to work with VAT registered companies because it helps them to claim back on the input or cost that the company has done or expenses which are associated with the income. So hence the companies, they like to work with VAT registered companies. Then we have the central supplier database. If you want to work with the government to do tenders or to register, to apply for tenders for government, so you need to register with central supplier database. Is the central register for all supplier information. So all supplier data, it's there on their supplier database. So you just need to register on that one. And I don't think it will be bad or it creates any risk as a startup company to register for this. So it creates another opportunity for your business. So I will encourage you to register for on a central supplier database should you want to do the business with government. So this system, it interlinks with SARS as well. So if you are on the system and your taxes or BE are not in order, or even your company registration, you don't submit your annual returns. So it's if your company is inactive or about to be deregistered, so this will be listed on this portal. So you can download a report from this portal to see where you are or your status is in terms of your the company compliance. If the company is active, your tax clearance, or your tax status where it is. That can be seen from the central database. So hence, in the beginning, we were saying it's very much important to have all the documents, because you cannot register on the system if the company is not registered. You don't have a registration number, you don't have a tax number, you would be unable to register on the system. Non-profit organization. So for non-profit organization, they need to register with SARS in order to receive their PBO. It's the public benefit organization. So it's the status that is issued by SARS for tax exemption. So it's the Section 18A approval, where the donor can claim back or can do a tax deduction on the receipts that they've given to the donors. So that's one of the things that we encourage businesses or NPOs to register for. For NPC, NPOs are also encouraged to register with the Department of Social Development in order to be registered as NPC. So all the the nonprofit organization can register with SARS to get their PBOs, and they can also register with the Department of Social Development to receive their NPC. I will also encourage that if you are a nonprofit organization and or planning to register one, once that is done, please, you can consult or find a tax practitioner who can do your PPO, because it's such a complex process, and it's one of the things that we have done with the foundation. So we found one of the tax practitioners who have helped us with getting our PPO as well. Then the NPC, we have done it internally. So it's a simple registration process. As long as you have all your documents in place that will be required on the application, then you can be able to register that as well. Lastly, for PAYS-UN and UIF registration, companies, they are required by law to register for UIF. If you have a staffer or an employer who works for you for 24 hours or more, you need to register for that. So this is a short-term relief for workers when they decide to, it helps them when they decide to go on maternity leave, or they become unemployed, or any other leaves, but that are approved by the UIF, except the annual leave, except the annual leave. So you need to register for that. A monthly contribution of 2% is paid. 1% is paid by the employer, and another % is paid by the employee. PAYS-UN as well, you need to have one or more staff members or employees in order to register. Companies are required by law to withhold tax and pay it over to SARS. So if your staff are based on the tax threshold on the income that they are earning, as a company, you need to withhold tax on their pay slip and pay that over to SARS. So that is done at the last day of submission of PAYS-UN is on the last day. I'm sorry, it's on the 7th or monthly. So that needs to be submitted to SARS on the 7th of every month. That is a deadline. But you can do it as soon as you have done your payroll and just submit your pays and to SARS. For labor inspection, documents may be required. Is then you will receive a notice of a visit from the labor. Then you need to have on hand when they visit your staff attendance register, which is signed by the staff. If you have a biometric system, you can download that from your biometric system. They need pay slips for staff members and contracts as well. They will also look for a letter of good standing because they need to ensure that should there be any accident, staff members are secured and protected and they can be covered by the compensation fund. So all of those documents will be required when a consultant from Department of Labor visits. Yeah, I think that's about that on my side. Thanks very much, Paula.
Thank you so much, Mbali. Very, very detailed, really useful stuff for South Africans. But we will be sharing a checklist. Mbali, I don't know if you could stop sharing. We will be sharing a checklist with everyone on the call of all the things that you could look at. But I think one of the first questions that we got from people registering, and Nigel, perhaps you and Mbali can both ask it. This feels so overwhelming. What is the minimum compliance that you think people need? I mean, once you register, a whole lot of things kick off, but what would you say is the minimum compliance?
Yep, I can jump in. I mean, essentially, certainly getting your business registered, and then getting a bank account, and then just getting your tax, any sort of tax certificate. A lot of these organizations, remember, I think people need to understand and remember something. You might be trying to get work from like a UN agency, right? You're a photographer, you're trying to get work from those guys are fastidious when it comes to paperwork. So if you don't have a tax clearance certificate, in their minds, your business isn't registered, you don't have a bank account, and you are just an individual. So you need to look, I don't say bigger than you really are, but you know, you almost need to look bigger than you really are. I mean, I've got friends of mine got a friend of mine in Botswana who set up an agency, and he literally had sales at whatever company name, finance at, and it was literally all coming to him. So, fake it till you make it, they say. So yeah, at least those three things I think are important.
Yeah, and just to add on, even freelancers, what I've seen, even freelancers, they struggle with the tax clearance as well. And because I think that is one of the requirements when they go to these businesses, they will need for a tax clearance. So it's always important to keep that part, especially the taxes, they need to be in order.
So register your business, get a bank account, get a tax clearance certificate.
That's correct.
The other thing that I've noticed increasingly, with a lot of funding going to public interest media, is that you have to belong, if you are a website, for example, if you're a content creator of any kind, you have to belong to a self-regulatory entity, whether it is the Press Council in South Africa or whichever regulatory entity in your country. People want to see that you're actually subscribed to a press code of ethics, etc., just to make sure that they're not giving their funding to somebody who pushes misinformation or disinformation. We've got a question, Nigel, and I think maybe you can help, from Boitumelo, who's starting a community news online publication. She's newly registered as a media entity, but she wants to pursue donor funding. since she doesn't have 3 years of financial history, what kind of information will donors be looking at, and how can she provide evidence and demonstrate their credibility to potential funders?
So I think, when it comes to credibility, right, and I like the key word there is online. You've got to have that online presence. So what they want to see is, do you have a Facebook page? Do you have a Twitter account? Are you on all these social media platforms? And then, of course, do you have a website? And then are you publishing content on a regular, consistent basis, right? So it can't be, I'm looking for some grant funding. I published last year in August, and now I'm trying. No, no, no. You've got to have done it consistently, regularly, and anyone looking at that, because remember, in these grant funding organizations, it's the person you're speaking to, they have a boss, there's an approval process, someone is checking, vetting to see if you are really real. Someone's going to Google you. So I even say things like Google yourself. um, just Google yourself. I always say think before you tweet. you know right now it's very easy to say things that are that can be deemed anti something. So, a guy got shot the other day in the US. I'm sitting here in Zim and I'm, you know, um, joining the conversation. I'm not saying don't join the conversation, but I'm just saying when you join the conversation, you're applying to an organization that gets funded by the government in the US. Someone is going to look at that and say, I don't think we should give this person. So think about all those things. Have your accounts ready, just for yourself. Just look, I made even, and sometimes I know, like, we don't want to get our records together because we think that income isn't sufficient enough to prove to someone that we are as big as we say we are, right? So it's minimal amount of money that we've generated in 2024 and even in 2025. We're asking a funder to give us some money, but it just shows that we're doing something. This is what we've generated on our own back. We need you to help us with just growing capacity, just to take us to the next stage. I also think we don't necessarily have to do a business plan, but we need to have what I like to call sort of a 2 or 3 year roadmap, right? Of, if you give us X, we will do this with this, and then the next funding phase will need X, will need Y, and then it'll take us to this next stage, and then the next funding phase will need Z, will take us to this. So if you can present your business in a way that convinces a funder that you've really thought about it and that you've got your skin in the game for the long term. Because what they don't want to do is fund someone who is just going to take this cash and then disappear with it. You know what I mean?
And I also think, I mean, I often sit on panels that look at grant making, and um, and you need to think of yourself as proving the ability to spend grants wisely and compliantly. And so, you know, go in at the level at which you're at. Don't be applying for $200,000 grants when you're just starting up. There are
Yeah.
grants for $20,000. Get that small grant, show that you, even at $1,000, $10,000, get the small grant, show that you can actually deliver on the small grant, and then grow from there. But as Nigel said also, if you know what you're trying to achieve down the line, you can actually apply for grants to help you get compliant. So African Women's
Mm-hmm.
Development Fund will actually fund people who aren't compliant and then give them coaching and support to actually become compliant. And so really look at how you're going to ask for funding that will show evidence of your ability to be able to become compliant, and build trust with them down the line. Um, Other questions that have come out before, I mean, Nigel, just in a sense of, I mean, you got donor funding really early. You were a private organization. People are
Mm,
always concerned about to get donor funding. I know when we started out as Free
yeah.
Intermedia, we were disqualified from a lot of donor funding because we were privately owned. And then down the
Mm,
line, that changed, didn't it? Where a lot of
mm,
funders are now giving privately owned organizations funding. Do you want to
yeah.
comment on that? What's better, an
Yeah.
NPO or a private company?
So I mean, I'm biased. When I set up 263 Chat, I literally wanted I I thought, hang on, if I set this up as a private, limited business, if it fails, then it fails, and then I can accept that. Here in Zim, it's more expensive to register an MPO than it is a private limited business. And this is money that I've got a Lobola fund. I'm taking I'm taking money from this fund, and I'm trying to marry this girl and show her that I love her, but at the same, so I went for the easiest, cheapest thing, but I was in the back of my mind, I always felt like it's a business. I need to always think about um, where do I make money? How do I generate revenue? Um, I work now for a non-profit, and I've come in and and I've been there a couple of months, well, more than a couple of months now. And I'm already trying to change the culture to make us, because I can see we've got skill sets in the team, and like how do we generate revenue so that we're not 100% dependent on someone giving us money. So it's it's something that you've got to, as an individual, you got to realize, you got to make a decision on your own. You are a photographer. I'll use a photographer example. You could you take, you might be taking photos of I don't know, whatever you're taking, but you can also do other commercial work that's got nothing to do with your organization as a way of just generating money to grow your own business. So in other words, you might be like, I love wildlife, I love the oceans. That's the grant that I'm looking for. But on the weekends, I want to do wedding photography because I just need to pay, keep the lights on. So yeah, I also think let's just be as practical as possible, and
Yeah.
let's not wait for someone to fund our dream, right? It's our dream, not theirs. So I'd rather go to a funder to say, look, I need $1,000, but I made $100 last week, and I did this with my $100. Can you give me $1,000 so I can 10x it?
Thank you. Thank you. A nice question, Jan and Bali, maybe you can help. It's from Neo at Mediate Media, with their publication called Student Living South Africa Online Digital News. And the question is, what do I need to register compliance-wise for freelance contractors or volunteers of the publication? For example, so these are freelancers, they're two different employees, then freelancers and volunteers. And then, for example, should they register for UIF and pay as you earn? And then maybe, Mbali, if you could touch also on the ETI process, because that might also be relevant here for them.
Yeah,
So,
thanks, Paula. So for if you are registered for pay as you earn as an organization, NEWO, the tax rules is that if 80% of their income is generated from your in-media organization, you can withhold pay as you earn and pay it over to SARS. But if it's less than that, let's say it's just one of work that they do, so they can pay that taxes by themselves. So normally they can submit a provisional tax in August and at the end of the year, or with their taxes to cover for those taxes. So you don't necessarily need to withhold tax if it's not 80% of the business that they've done with you guys.
for volunteers, there's no need actually for UIF or pay as you earn because it is a volunteer situation.
Yeah. So so I think that will apply to ETI, but it will depend on the age. I think last it was about 6,000 of their salaries If they are getting a salary of 6,000, then you can claim that to SARS. So it depends on the age and the salary scale that they are on. Then you can register for ETI with SARS.
Thanks. So for volunteers, I mean, if they're volunteering for you, there's no need to register them for UIF or pay as you earn. If they're freelancers, if 80% of their income is earned from you, then they are essentially working for you, and you can withhold their pay as you earn. If they are of a qualifying age and earn less than 6,000 Rand a month, you can in fact claim back from SARS and ETI, which is a youth grant. But we have put in the chat now the SARS link for Q&A for frequently asked questions, and you can actually get more information from them regarding that. And I have to say, I mean, I was saying that a lot of the compliance stuff has become a lot more complex these days. But at the same time, I think our government and the ability to go online has also made it easier. And so I think the Biz portal that Mbali was talking about, I also put it in the chat, is really actually excellent to be able to register, to get stuff, to get information. And the same with SARS. You can even go to your local SARS office and sit with them and ask them to make sure that you're compliant and that you've done all of these things. All of these entities have become a lot more accessible, and being online, they can actually support you as much as possible. I want to check if there are any more questions. And if not, we can wrap up. I do want to say that I know that compliance isn't the sexy part of media work. The sexy part is telling the stories, doing the social media, doing all of those things. But compliance is so critical. And so, really, if there's anything else you feel that from a compliance point of view, we need to be focusing on, do write to us. Do reach out to the foundation to say, can we have more help with this? We are going to try and support as much as possible with skills building around the applications for grants, including things like helping you have an M&E process, helping you make sure that you're actually able to deliver. But I'm going to say, if there are no more questions, I'm going to ask our two speakers to do some closing remarks, and we'll close off today's session. Just to start by saying thank you very much for everyone who joined us and for showing your commitment to building sustainable media in Africa. And then maybe Mbali, you're on. So ask you for a few closing, some last advice from your point of view.
Thanks, Paula. For me, I will say compliance documents are really important. As Nigel has said, they will give you peace of mind. So yesterday we got this tender that we are working on, and our CEO and some of the project managers, they were going through the supporting documents, and they were shouting, "Bali, do you have this?" And I'm always calm, like, "No, we have it. Why do you worry? Let's continue." So it will definitely give you peace of mind. So I will advise everyone to really go for it. But if you need professional work, just find a professional accountant, a tax practitioner who can guide you through the questions that you might have.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, to keep all of those documents in one place, so that you're not looking for everything. Your certified ID, your company registration, your tax compliance, put them in a folder so they have them in one place. Nigel, last advice from you.
I'll just go back to my last slide. You can't scale chaos. You cannot, if it's chaotic. I mean, just think of it this way, if you're trying to relax on a Sunday and your living room is upside down, you're not gonna relax. So once you've put away all the cushions and the popcorn that was eaten last night for the kids or whatever, and you swept all, then you can, lie on the couch or whatever and just relax. So same kind of analogy. I like that part about keeping all the documents somewhere safe. I think that is something that is, really underestimated, just having all your bank account documents, all that stuff in a secure place. Sometimes keep these documents at the bank if you have to, right? Keep them at the bank. Make sure that they're available in soft copy. Some of these tender documents, like you're saying, they tell you today's the 17th of September. This thing is due on the 19th of September, so you got a quick turnaround. I love Google Calendar, right? It tells me what's going on. It tells other people what's going on. Share this information. Put deadlines in the team calendar. Let everybody know what's going on. Even if it has nothing to do with them, just let. And especially, I mean, I'm sitting where my sister Bali's sitting. Where you are in the operations of the media organization. I've come into the organization I work with now, and just to put a master calendar that was already there. I zhuzhed it up a little bit, and what it does is it just notifies the editorial team what's actually happening, and some of the things they need to know are non-editorial. So there's a grant that's due, there's a grant report that's due. All that compliance stuff is really important. So if they see us and we're a little bit under the weather or a little bit moody, or close the door when normally it's open, it's because we're dealing with the stuff that makes the organization tick along. And keeping the lights on is a really, really important part of any media organization. I think those
Absolutely.
are my last paragraph.
Absolutely. I mean, this is media might be our passion, but we're trying to build a sustainable business. And
Yeah.
and I love, Nigel, your emphasis on structure as being part of the compliance process. So as we wrap up, I mean, my takeaways really is that compliance builds credibility and trust. It builds a business that can scale. It unlocks access to funding and partnerships, and it lays the foundation for long-term sustainability. So if you're thinking that you're just going to focus on the editorial and on the things that you really love to do, you really need to take the time out to go back to the basics and make sure that all of these things are in place. Thank you once again, Mbali Ntlingweta and Nigel Mugamu, for sharing your insights always so generously. Thank you everyone who came, asked questions, and shared your experiences. Once again, we encourage you to stay connected to Frame Media Foundation. Let us know what you want us to be focusing on, and we'll continue to do that. I hope to see many of you when we do the Scale Up for Profit workshop in a year's time, and all of your things will be in place and we'll be ready to scale for profit. So thank you very much, everyone. Nigel and Bali, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Big
very
thank
much.
you to the team behind the scenes, Lesejo and Bongiwe, who have been keeping us going. Without them, these workshops don't happen. So thanks, everyone. Stay well.